Hello everyone, welcome back to LuNami. My name is Looney. It's time to have a Looney discussion, a Looney review, a Looney talk about chapter 1123 of One Piece because man, there's a lot to go over, there's a lot to talk about, especially one specific panel that myself and some of my fellow cohorts of a certain community are very excited about, so we'll talk about a little bit about that. And it also marks the end of Egghead, so it's going to be very I don't know how I feel about Egghead in general. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10 arc. I do believe it's an 8 out of 10 at least at the moment. But I do think that it had some of the best moments in One Piece, considering that we had a really sad flashback that involved Kuma. Vegapunk wasn't to me necessarily an amazing character. I think while it was always interesting and exciting to eventually meet Vegapunk, I think that Vegapunk was a little bit overrated a little bit based on the lore we had of him and what we experienced through about like exactly what happened with Vegapunk throughout this arc. He was a little bit overrated. I do think he kind of wasn't as good as advertised, you know, but that's just my own personal opinion. There was some very good stuff with Vegapunk that we can go over as well, and there's just a lot more because now we're done with Egghead. We're heading off to Elbaf, baby. Or are we? What if we are not actually heading off to Elbaf just yet, but we will have like sort of a pit stop, and I'll tell you or give you my reasoning and like what I think that pit stop might be. So to start off, let's begin with the Yamato cover story where Yamato is having what looks like Odin with the kids who essentially threw food at him, right? And Denjiro is joining them, so it's a fun little side trip for Yamato before more than likely he will have to go on the pilgrimage again. So it's very cute, it's very adorable, and I'm glad that it showcases that kids may harbor hatred to you unless you give them reason to not hate you. And that's essentially a great way to teach kids that not everything has to, you know, be surrounding like hatred. If the person you hate turns out to be a very good person, then maybe that hatred wasn't justified at all. So it's nice to see the kids really, you know, essentially hang out with Yamato as we see in the cover story. So now we're moving on to the chapter, and we have nothing but all the Marines and Vice Admirals, except for apparently a Snake, passed out from the haki that Emmett released from inside his core. Joe Boy's haki, and my goodness, it's so interesting to see exactly just how powerful this haki was that even the Vice Admirals were knocked out by it. Now, granted, some of the Vice Admirals were turned into kids, so it's like, you know, maybe that was one of the reasons why the Vice Admirals were also passed out, so that's possibly a reason. But if that's not the reason and they just passed out because of how strong Joe Boy's haki was, my god, Joe Boy's haki is insane. So now that, you know, we see them passed out, we move on to basically the Giants, and it's a very interesting tidbit that is showcased here. A very interesting tidbit. According to what I think Bragi, is that his name? Doria Bragi. Apparently they were comparing Redhead Shanks' haki to Joe Boy's. They basically said that that was greater than Redhead's, but it didn't seem hostile, did it? So essentially what that means in context form based on that description itself, it just means that Joe Boy's haki was just immensely stronger than the haki that Shanks currently have. Does that mean that Shanks isn't currently the greatest haki user in the One Piece world at the current moment? I personally believe he is, but that just showcases just how powerful Joe Boy was during his time, to the point where his haki was insanely strong. They also mentioned that it didn't seem hostile, which tells me that Joe Boy's haki was very well controlled. Controlled to the point that Joe Boy essentially was able to control his haki for whatever future use it will be used on, to attack certain people that go against whatever Emmett probably wanted, right? Because remember, the reason why Emmett pulled the string to release the haki was because he wanted to save Luffy and all his allies to escape from the Marines, the Gorosei, and all that. So it's very well possible that Joy Boy's haki essentially fused with, Emmett's soul, maybe, or something concerning with Emmett that allowed the haki to be controlled enough so that it only targeted people that would go against, Emmett's wishes. And I think that's very powerful because, again, haki is all about the will, right? So I would guess that whatever the will of Emmett's was to in this certain situation, that haki followed. I don't know if that's like somehow connected to the way Joy can control haki in that form, but if he can, and it was basically used in to connect with Emmett in some sort of way, that is a powerful way to control haki. I don't know if Luffy will be able to do it. Hopefully he does, because I think at some point he will have that type of level of haki control, right? Maybe, possibly. If he does, that's insane. That would actually be really goddamn insane. And then we have Luffy saying goodbye to Emmett, the Iron Giant, thanks for everything. And we see Emmett just, his lights are out. So it's like, man. Emmett, you are a soldier. Thank you so much for what you did. Essentially, that's what it looks like, right? That Emmett sacrificed himself, or sacrificed the last remaining, ounce of energy he had to allow Joy Boy's I guess successor, but the one who will be whose will his will was passed down to escape because of Luffy being Gear 5 and stuff like that, which admirable. Admirable. He was a soldier till the end, and I think that's fantastic. I do hope that they do meet in some form of capacity again, Luffy and Emmett, because I think they deserve to have some sort of reunion. But it's uncertain whether or not Oda will do that, because it's possible Emmett is officially just out for the count. Now, Oda could do like a cover story in regards to it. Maybe like someone finds Emmett, maybe tries to repair him, that Emmett, somehow regains his energy. I don't know. That could be possible. Or maybe in the future, like during like whatever the final conflict is, the remaining Vegapunk, Lilith is essentially finds a way to get Emmett and then power him up again in some form or way. Maybe even like the Mother Flame. Like maybe the Mother Flame goes back to the Straw Hats or whatever to allow them to be able to, or Vegapunk or whoever is on the Alliance side for Luffy to essentially reawaken Emmett. But who knows, right? Who knows? And now we have the big celebration that we're going to Elbaf. Okay, so this is exciting. Elbaf has been one of the more anticipated arcs in all of One Piece. There's a lot going to happen in Elbaf. Hopefully it's a big Usopp arc, because I think Usopp definitely needs an arc, especially with like the way Oda has handled Usopp in terms of like strength and power, and essentially because it's like he didn't have really a matchup in Wano, and that kind of disappointed me. So hopefully whatever happens in Elbaf gives him like some sort of power up, like how Zoro got Enma, or Sanji with the exoskeleton of the Vinsmokes, something like that with Usopp. That would be fantastic for him. Other people that will probably have a huge impact in Elbaf, probably Robin, because we do know that Saul is there. The records of O'Hara are there, so she'll probably learn a lot more about the Ancient Kingdom, a lot more about the Poneglyphs, and just more about the history of the Void Century, which can be a huge arc for Robin in Elbaf. So she also will probably have a huge impact. Kuma and Bonnie, as well as Lilith, will probably have more like they will probably arrive in Elbaf, and essentially I think Lilith will start working on reviving Kuma in some form or fashion. Bonnie will probably stay in Elbaf. I don't think she will join the crew, but I think that she will stay in Elbaf, and help Lilith try to regain Kuma or fix Kuma, maybe even bring his memories back and his humanity back in some form or way. I don't know how they will do that. I can't explain how they would do it, but I do hope something like that happens, whether it be in Elbaf or like in the near future, before whatever the final conflict is, where Luffy and his entire group of people that he has known throughout his adventures join together to fight whatever the final villain is, right? So that's possible. I think that's what's going to happen, because we do see Bonnie hugging Kuma, which is adorable. That's very sweet. I do hope Kumba does regain his humanity, regains his consciousness, and I really do hope that happens. All right. So now they're heading up to Elbaf. That's gonna be fun. The one thing I am interested in Elbaf to see, aside from Usopp's power up and like Robin's reunion with Saul, is Prince Loki, because Prince Loki was mentioned within Big Mom, something about Big Mom essentially wanting to marry, have one of her daughters. I think, which one was it? It wasn't Lola, right? It was either Lola or Chiffon. I forgot who it was. But right, she wanted someone to marry Prince Loki, which means that maybe Prince Loki, in some form or way, is looking for someone to marry. Now, I do have a theory. I've had this theory for years. I don't know how confident I am, because it's more of going into my headcanon shipping wise, which is where we're going to lead into this next part of the One Piece discussion. So I know some people don't really want to hear about the shipping discussion whenever they hear about like One Piece reviews or stuff like that. So if you want, skip ahead. There'll probably be a text somewhere on the screen telling you how far to skip ahead to skip all the shipping discussion I'm gonna have, because I do want to talk about it. So, but I understand if you don't want to hear about it, so that's perfectly fine. I don't have like a timestamp to let you know when you could just go and skip through. But I do want to go into discussion and do some shipping discussion. Why do I want to do some shipping discussion? Because as a LuNami fan, we did get a wonderful panel, and surprisingly, this panel was the only one that was leaked for a while. Apparently, this was the only one. This one, and also I believe the final page of this chapter was leaked out early, and it was only essentially that panel that was leaked. I don't know who the leaker was that just leaked that panel, but like, my goodness, we LuNami fans are very, very happy whoever did do that, right? But it's a very, very fun panel. Like, we see all the other Straw Hats, excelling, being happy, cheering that they're seeing the Giants that are going to Elbaf. Then you have Luffy, losing his power, going from Gear 5 into this old man, tired, completely exhausted phase that we've seen him do several times. He did it with the fight with Kaido, he did it with the fight with Lucci, and so on and so forth, right? And then we have a very cute, adorable moment where Nami is worried and panicking about Luffy's state as he is now, and she has him on his lap, resting on his lap. This is one of like a very common trope shipping thing that can happen within any sort of ship that you do, and it's really, really cute. Of course, Oda had to put his own spin off to make it look like a gag because of Luffy's old man face and how exhausted and tired he is. That's kind of like what he does whenever there's like any sort of like common trope with shipping. He does do this a lot, where he adds like some sort of comedic effect to it to not make it as a very serious shipping moment, but it can be viewed as one. And that is one of the things that Oda has done post time skip a lot in terms of like the way Luffy and Nami's relationship has been. I'm not saying that what he's been focusing on is the romantic part, but what he has been focusing on, and he's been doing this a lot, is Nami being worried about Luffy's well-being. It has been shown throughout the post-time skip, starting even at Fishman Island, where she has been constantly worried about Luffy. Like anytime he fights like some sort of big bad, or she hasn't seen him in a while, she's always asking about him. She's always looking up at that wherever she thinks or knows he is fighting some sort of big bad, like he did with Hody, like he did with Kaido, and she's constantly worried about him. She's constantly wondering how he's doing. Like anytime she talks to like any of the members of the Straw Hats who maybe know where Luffy is, that's like one of the first things she asks: where is Luffy? How is Luffy? Do you know where he is? All that stuff. It's been constant, right? It's been a constant theme that has happened in post time skip, and that showcases a lot in terms of like how worried Nami is. Now, this could be very well much from the perspective that Nami was not able to be there for Luffy when Ace died because of what happened at Shibodi, and all the events of Marineford, where she is one of the few Straw Hats who knows what Luffy went through, because someone very close to him, his own brother, was murdered right in front of him. Nami knows that very well because her mother, Bellemere, was murdered right in front of her. She understood that pain. She understood what Luffy was going through, and she wanted to be there for him, right? She started doing all that stuff in Werdere, where she was trying to steal stuff to try to escape, right? And then you have that moment where she's running off. She's, she initially started fake crying to just get, the old men of Wadaria, the wizards, to essentially, let her free. She captures Haredas and she runs off. And then she starts crying, and Haredas notices. I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, but he notices and asks that she's still, fake crying. But in reality, she was actually crying because she really, really felt the pain that Luffy must have been going through, and because she's very emotional like that. She understands the emotions of not only Luffy but many other characters, right? But this was specifically a great moment where it showcased how worried she has become about Luffy's well-being, and we see in post time skip, Punk Hazard, Fishman Island, Wano, WCI. These are like slow burning progressive moments that I think a lot of LuNami fans are looking at and are enjoying, and I think that's a perfect thing to showcase here, because my goodness gracious, it's like it's a slow burn, slow progress. We had the hand holding when Luffy eats the poison that Oda apparently got from the anime, and now we have Luffy's resting on Nami's lap after being exhausted from Gear 5. We don't actually see how exactly this happens. What we do know is that Luffy probably fell into the sunny after he became exhausted, and Nami probably rushed over to him. We'll see what Toei decides to do in terms of that situation. But it's a very adorable moment. It's a very cute moment that many Luffy-Nami shippers, myself included, are very excited about, very, very, thrilled about, because it showcases a lot of the same or similar patterns that we see Oda doing in romance. Now, I know a lot of people will probably think we're crazy, that we're insane, that we're loony, but I think it's when something like this happens, when someone constantly looks worried about a certain somebody, and it just constantly happens, and Oda continues to do so within every arc in some form or way, you kind of see it as a pattern, and it's no longer just like a coincidence. It's a pattern. Once you develop a pattern, it means that the author is trying to do something. It may not be instant, where like it's like an instant gratification, or like an instant form of like the ship being closer to being canon, right, or anything like that, but it's progress towards a possible idea or moment in the near future or in the future, right, where if he does decide on the ship, you could look back and see the moments like this, because it is a slow burn. Because at the end of the day, the Straw Hats are not necessarily interested in romance, right? Like most series are, where like there's constant or like continuous romance throughout most series. With LuFi-Nami, with One Piece, it's a slow burn. Like, it just feels like Oda knows what he's doing in terms of whatever ship he wants to do, if he decides to do so. Like, he understands what he needs to do, because at the end of the day, it's an adventure. As the adventure progresses, you could have that slow burn into romance. You don't need characters to all of a sudden be in love or confess to each other, but you can grow their bond, grow their friendship to the point where like it can slowly start developing in that way. And Oda has done that, specifically post time skip. Nami being worried about Luffy is that way of him showcasing that Nami really, really is worried and cares about Luffy's well-being. Because I think Nami is one of those people among the Straw Hats, and I'm not trying to devalue like how the other Straw Hats will feel about if Luffy like somehow dies, right? But she will be one of those people who will probably be the most heartbroken. And I think that her constantly being worried about Luffy's well-being showcases that it would affect her most if something really bad happened to Luffy. But again, it's a great shipping moment for LuFi-Nami fans, and I think we should celebrate it. It's a lot of fun. I know there are people who are already, refuting this, such as, will Luffy rest on Rebecca's lap, or that really small panel of like Nami and Vivi trying to put Sanji into the sled as they're escaping during Drum Island. But you could hardly see whether or not she has him on her lap. It's like it's not 50-50. This panel at least showcases like a clear image of it, right? With that one, it's very hard to see. And another one is about the whole Usopp resting on Nami's lap. In the manga, it's not clear enough to showcase whether or not that's a thing that does happen there. In the anime, they do make it much more clearer. So But in the manga, it's like not as clear, and it is what it is. I don't. I'd rather take the manga canon rather than whatever Tori added, which will probably be the same case when this happens, when Tori decides to animate how Luffy gets on board, or like who catches him, who rushes towards him, and stuff like that. So who knows? It will still be considered filler, because it's something that Tori added in terms of like what their interpretation of like what might have happened is. But overall, it's a great moment for Luffy Nami fans, and I'm very happy for them. I was happy. I'm very happy for them, because it's really showcasing just how much their bond has grown, and Nami's constant worry about his well-being is essentially being focused here, right? It's essentially being focused here, and that's why I think we should celebrate. So now in regards to Prince Loki, about the whole Prince Loki thing, and this is more of a shipping discussion for me, because one of my theories is that Prince Loki for some strange reason, is trying to get married. Because we know about the whole Big Mom stuff with Prince Loki marriage, because she wanted giants into her big pirate family, right? I do think that, one of my theories is that, and this is mostly for shipping reasons, this is why this is in the shipping section of this discussion, in that I do believe that Prince Loki may ask Nami for, her hand in marriage, and I think the reason why is because it will connect to the whole WCI about Chiffon, because Nami and Chiffon has a connection and stuff like that, and, out of all the characters, I think Prince Loki will probably be closer to age to Nami. So I think that is why I think Prince Loki might. And that would kind of cause Prince Loki to be kind of the antagonist, unless Oda does it as a joke, as a gag, right? But it could be, because we do need a antagonist for Elbaf in some form or way. It could be Shanks. Who knows? But I think Shanks left already, so I doubt it will be him. But I don't know who the antagonist will be in Elbaf. It could be Prince Loki. I think that would be a very interesting idea, that Prince Loki would essentially maybe try to trick the Straw Hats and try to take Nami away from them. And that could, cause a lot of some other things. It will also be a perfect way to showcase like any form of like romantic interest in Luffy towards Nami. Like he gets jealous, or like he will do anything to make sure that Loki doesn't take her. But again, this is just a theory, just a headcanon. I'm not gonna be like upset if it doesn't happen. I just think that's an interesting idea, because of like just how closer we are to the end, and like as I said, Oda's doing a very slow burn, so like having that slow burn continue happening to the next arc in that way, where he kind of shows Luffy's more jealous side, or more angry side, if someone tries to take Nami again, right? But we'll see. I don't see this being a very, very high percentage, theory of happening. But it'll be interesting to see, and I'll be very happy if it does come true, because I believe I talked about it for months, and then I slowly started picking up, or like starting to say it as well, and then just like, god damn, I should have made a video on it before. But yeah, that's essentially that theory about the whole Prince Loki marriage stuff. So I know some of you might have skipped ahead, because you didn't want to hear my shipping thoughts and shipping moments. So here we are going to talk about the rest of the chapter. Again, I understand why you wouldn't want to listen to that stuff, so I perfectly understand. But let's go on and move on to the next part, which is going to be one of the very interesting parts, because essentially a lot of people are clowning Sanji. I'm pretty sure I clowned him at some point too in regards to this, but that's mostly because I don't necessarily consider Sanji as one of my favorite characters, but I'm also one of those people who would, and honor Sanji, not honor, but like give Sanji his praise whenever he does something cool, something great, something amazing, right? And one of the things is that apparently Vegapunk wanted to die, and that Sanji didn't just let Vegapunk die because he was incapable of saving him, but Vegapunk himself wanted to die, which is very interesting. And we see it in this flashback when we see talking about how like apparently they found out that York was betraying them, that there was some sort of irregularity with the memories, that York was erasing stuff, the data was tampered in some form or way, and they knew about this. So they hatched a plan to essentially, you know, figure out a way to prevent York from completing whatever her mission was. And I think that's essentially a interesting idea, because when they find out, they want to make sure that York, who is also tapping into like their memories, into like the I forgot what it's called, but the brain that they all share, right? And they don't want York to know about that. They know, right? So it's so they started plotting. They created a way to make sure that they are able to get away with whatever plan they were trying to do, such as the recording, right? And it's a very interesting. I was not expecting it, but then when you really look back, it makes sense now, because of the way some of the Vegapunks, what was it? Vegapunk himself, what's his name? I'm trying to look for the name. Pythagoras, Pythagorean theorem guy. Oh, here we go. Pythagoras. Oh, it was right, Pythagoras. And who's the cool one? The one with the mask, Stella? No, Stella is, I don't remember their names. The one with the cool mask, whatever his name is. All three of them, you know, essentially found out who the one who was tampering all the data, or the, you know, the video, all the stuff, and the memories, and essentially, for some reason, they blame Lilith, because, you know, Lilith is the evil side, but it was actually the greed side of Vegapunk who was the betrayer, which makes sense. I always believed that greed was one of the worst deadly sins, right? Yeah, greed, because at the end of the day, greed is what motivates a lot of people to do what they do. Greed for money, greed for power, you know, want for power, want money, want this, want that. A lot of the times people take actions or do certain things because of that greed, that they want whatever it is that they want. So it makes sense that greed would be the one to do it, because, you know, York probably wanted something out of the world government. I believe that there is something that she wanted that they actually revealed, but I don't remember what it is. My memory has always been crap like that. But yes, and with greed, you want that. If they are able to give you something that you want, greed is just gonna bite you in the butt, and just gonna constantly, you know, go into more of just wanting that certain thing, and you will do things no matter what, like tampering with memories and trying to give the mother flame to the world government, that kind of stuff. Greed will do that. Evil, essentially, evil can come from greed, but not having greed and just being evil, as in just a person who just thinks of all the bad situations that they want to do and just be a, you know, a dick, can be considered evil. Like, you just being an asshole can be just considered evil, right? Just being a, you know, a piece of shit. But greed is the want, the thing that you desperately want, and you will do anything to obtain it, because that's what greed does. Evil can be so many other things, but greed is what causes people to really want to get something. So it makes sense to me why York was the one who tampered and, you know, did all this. The memory she's been synchronizing punk runs are phony. You know, she's been plotting all this to essentially work with the world government, because the world government found out about Vegapunk learning about, you know, the Void Century, which is a crime. And they will do anything to essentially, you know, erase anybody who even has some form of connection with the Void Century, because they don't want anyone learning about it. What could the reason be? It could simply be because of certain events in the Void Century that makes them turn out to look bad, or maybe they don't want people to look up the ancient weapons, which unfortunately people already know about. But essentially, yeah, like, they want people to not learn about the Void Century, because more than likely something about the Void Century essentially puts the world government in a bad light. And once you lose the faith of the people, right, you lose everything at that point. Then you just have to go into tyranny and just control people through fear and strength and power. And you could control people like that, but you don't want to go that route unless, you know, Emu has no other choice. So that's why it makes sense that they want to avoid people. But that could just be one reason. Who knows what the actual reason is that they want no one to learn about the Void Century? It probably has to do with the fact that they want, no one to know anything about what happened prior to the world government taking control of the planet. It's possible. They don't want anyone to know about it for whatever reason. Maybe Imu is just one of those bad guys who just doesn't want anything to do with it, so he's just being petty and stuff like that. Who knows? That could be a thing too. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. Then we see that they go back, that the Kingdom of Lucia has been erased. They try to look for information, and then they go into like a hypersleep, right? Where they essentially learn, right? They essentially learn about York, and all this stuff. There's one interesting thing about some of the stuff that they are talking about essentially what they want to try to save, right? He doesn't want to, for some reason in this plan, he doesn't want to prevent the world government from getting the Mother Flame. Almost as if like he doesn't care enough to, prevent them from getting it. And why? Why would that be? Well, when we really think about the Mother Flame, it really is a, incomplete. Even Vegapunk says it's incomplete. And that's why I think he's okay with it, because he believes that if he can't solve it, and he believes that York probably won't be able to, fully complete the Mother Flame, the world government is going to have a hard time using it, especially if they can only use it during, or certain amount of times, or certain intervals. And they want to complete it. More than likely, York will probably never be able to complete it. Which goes back into this theory of mine. I posted a video about it, about the Mother Flame and how it's involved in the final conflict, and how, the final conflict, essentially, it will be a battle for the Mother Flame. And my theory suggests that the One Piece, wherever the One Piece is, somehow is able to complete the Mother Flame. Once you have the completed Mother Flame, you essentially have the same energy source as the Ancient Kingdom did. And the Ancient Kingdom used that source to rise in power, to become this advanced civilization. We see in Egghead that, Vegapunk even says that all the technology on Egghead was technology of the past, because the Ancient Kingdom had this technology. It was so far advanced that, they had this energy source that allowed them to power it all up, and that's what the Mother Flame be. If the Mother Flame's complete, you have that energy source. Whoever owns or has that completed form of energy, they are able to control whatever path the rest of the world goes into. For example, for Imu, if he is able to fully claim the Mother Flame, guess what? He will continue to be able to rule as, the head of the world government. He will continue ruling, but now with fear and power, because now he has possibly one of the ancient weapons who was powered by Mother Flame. And if anyone tries to, go against them, he just has to snap his fingers. Uranus destroys it, the same way with Lelouch, and then that's it. He's able to then govern, control everyone like a tyrant, essentially. But instead of being in secret, now he could be fully out and open, because who will oppose them if he has this deadly power, right? And that's essentially what will happen. I think that's essentially what we're going to see is that conflict. If Luffy wins, the Mother Flame, he finds the One Piece, he completes his journey, and he becomes a Pirate King, and he's able to probably use the Mother Flame to create that ultimate freedom, or whatever that last dream is, right? Because a lot of people said the last dream, is very childish, or it almost impossible. But with the Mother Flame, it could be possible, right? The ultimate freedom, such as destroying the Red Line to completely, fully take all the separated seas and combine them together, create the All Blue and stuff like that. So I think that's a possibility that the Mother Flame could be what they will be fighting for. It will essentially be the One Piece to complete the Mother Flame. The Mother Flame will be that goal, because the Mother Flame will still be One Piece, right? Because it will be connected to wherever the One Piece is. But who knows if that's going to be the case? It's just a theory I made. Whether or not it comes true, who knows? I'll be happy if it does. But I think that's why he's not too afraid. Not because he believes that York can complete it, but he knows that York probably can complete it. It could become unstable and will be unusable by the world government. So he's okay with it, right? It's so it's he's afraid of the power that the Mother Flame can do, right? Because of Lelouch. But he's not worried about them fully tapping into the full capability of it. So he's not too worried about keeping the Mother Flame. And that's why I think that he didn't prioritize it at all. So that's a possibility. Or, you know, it could have been that he was planning to blow up the entire Egghead, or like he assumed or believed that Egghead will be, you know, destroyed and the Mother Flame will be destroyed along with it. But that didn't happen. But I do think that he already was well prepared to not care about the Mother Flame to the point where, like, you know, he believed that they wouldn't be able to use it properly. Now, is it the right move? Well, it depends on like what happens with the Mother Flame, this incomplete Mother Flame, because it could cause other people to essentially, you know, die because of Vegapunk's belief that York will never be able to complete it, but they will still be able to use the Mother Flame. If the Mother Flame becomes unstable, that's a different story, but you can't really predict that. Who knows what goes on in Vegapunk's head, right? But if that's the reason why, it can be a little careless, but I think that will mostly depend on just how well the Mother Flame is used. Will it be unstable? Will it be useless without it being complete? We don't know. But York more than likely will probably not be able to complete it, because if Vegapunk himself is unable to complete it, why would York? Like, I understand that York shares the same brain kind of with Vegapunk, but like what tells people that she'll be able to do it, right? Who knows? But then essentially the Vegapunks decide on a plan where like he will die, because he will leave a message, and that message will be told to the world, and that his death, in order to essentially, you know, prevent the world government from fully just killing him without him doing anything, he could at least send a message to the world. Like, he knows that because of his research into the Void Century, and now that, you know, the world government knows that he knows, he wants to make his death worth it. And by doing so, he essentially decides to be like, oh, you know what? If I'm gonna die, fuck it. I'm gonna send a message to the world to tell you what the world government has been doing, what I know about the Void Century, what I learned, and, you know, whatever happens, screw the world government, because they killed me. Even though that's not what the world government is going to say. The world government is going to say that, you know, the Straw Hats, you know, killed him, and essentially, well, their boundaries will increase. But the three of them are the ones who essentially know, and then, you know, they will hibernate, go to sleep, and then wake up and then learn about all this information, because they will have their memories erased. I do want to point out one other thing. There is one moment in the manga where they talk about there's one other thing we must safeguard: our Cloud Love technology to manufacture artificial island clouds, maybe pivotal in saving humanity in the future. Now, that is a very interesting, because it can lead to something with Nami. Nami's lore, what Nami's future role could be, you know, further on in the story, and that could be because Cloud Love technology, essentially Nami's expertise with meteorology, weather, and stuff like that, could be very beneficial to how she can essentially be involved in saving the world, saving people with her idea of weather, and how she's able to create stuff with her climate tech. To think that an invention by Usopp would essentially could be the thing that saves a lot of people's lives is amazing to me, because it's so cool. That's big props to Usopp for creating something like that, even though he, you know, it would be funny though that like the idea for it was to, you know, be for parties, but like at the end it will actually be something that could save a lot of people's lives. That's actually fantastic. It's such a great sense of like Oda's humor, and the reason why is because Cloud Love technology, it's something about like creating artificial island clouds. Nami can create Milky Roads. She already has kind of like the process to that. We never see Vegapunk see Nami use Milky Road. I don't even know if we've seen Milky Road at all, which is a little disappointing, because I think it's a very interesting ability. But I think that could be a very huge thing for Nami. Maybe Lilith can power up her climate attack to be able to do something like that. Maybe that's the missing piece that they need to create those artificial clouds, right? You could connect it with Zeus as well to make him more powerful. And that just creates so much more of a bigger role for Nami at US, especially if, like, let's say the world will be flooded again because of the final conflict. She could use that ability of hers to save people. Now, what it else can do is go more into Nami's lore, because there's a lot of things we don't know about the Ancient Kingdom. We don't know about Nami. We do know that Oda has an idea for her past. He's mentioned it. a few times. So we do know he has a plan for it. What that plan is, we don't know yet. But I think it has something to do with her very unique ability to predict weather. Like we know during their course to Elbaf, when she gets sick, she's able to predict the cyclone, even though she's sick, and they're able to avoid it. Even Vivi is marveled by it. Like, holy shit, Nami was able to do this? God damn, what the hell? You know, that's important because that showcases that Nami is a little bit abnormal or more of a genius because she has some sort of innate ability. Could it be hockey? It could possibly be hockey, a form of, you know, observation hockey that, you know, allows her to predict weather like that. But what if it's more of like something that the Ancient Kingdom, their technology, or something to do with Sky Islands that allows her to essentially tap into this weather ability to do these amazing things? It could be something with her ancestry, right? Her abilities to, you know, predict weather could be something from the Ancient Kingdom or some ancient civilization. Maybe something in the Sky Islands. There are many different things that could happen in regards to that, right? And I think that's going to be a very important thing, and that's why I found that panel so interesting about the Cloud Loft technology, because Nami can technically do that with the Milky Road. I don't think it's exactly as perfect, but imagine using that to maybe create all the current islands, right? Instead of like using like arcs and stuff like that, to create, you know, these artificial clouds to bring those islands from there up into the sky to avoid the Great Flood. That is that would be amazing, right? Of course, it will be very hard to do so because, you know, it's kind of hard to lift an entire island from, you know, the ground that it's connected to, because we know that, you know, there was already a Great Flood, so that island that they're on could be part of like a bigger mountain, like a bigger piece of land. So it will be much harder. I don't know how they're going to pull it off. Maybe they could use one of the ancient weapons, like for example Uranus, right? Uranus could be a sky island or some sort of weapon, right, that can essentially be like, or power up that ability to create these artificial clouds to lift the islands up. Who knows? I think I'm gonna do a video on it to explain it a little bit more better. But like, that panel really made me excited as a Nami fan because it could lead to so much more, and it's so much fun to theorize and think about. Right? Just seeing that just made me happy as a Nami fan, because while I already know or expect something really big in terms of Nami's lore and like Nami's future role as the heroine of the series, I just think that, my God, it was such a good panel to read and see. Oh my God, I can't wait to see what Oda has planned for Nami's like lore and beyond, because it's gonna be so much fun. But yeah, we continue on. York, York, Vegapunk is trying to, deceive York to make sure that like York doesn't know much, and essentially they already decide to record, the message that he wants to do, and then go to sleep and wipe their memories so that York cannot in any way, see those memories and tap into them, erasing the memories so that York doesn't know what they're planning. And it worked. She doesn't know. It's just funny because it's like, when they do wake up, they have no recollection of what they're doing. They see a letter, and then all of a sudden, like, they read all this stuff that they found out about York and like what's happening with the world government about the Void Century, and you just see their reactions. They go like, what, huh? Oh my, where? That kind of reaction. It's fun. It's really funny, and essentially when they are with Sanji and Frankie, as they're going down the cloud, I think that's what it was. Vegapunk tells Sanji and even Frankie that, after we rescue Bonnie, he plans on dying because it will activate that message. And that's why a lot of people are praising Oda, because at the end of the day, Sanji didn't, let Vegapunk die because of his inability to protect him, but because Vegapunk wanted this. And there's an interesting panel, I think in like one of the previous chapters, where he gives Bonnie that, that smile as if he's trying to reassure her that everything's all right. It's a very similar smile that he has when he's speaking to Nami, Brook, and Chopper as he's leaving for WCI, that reassuring smile. He does it again. I understand Sanji's perspective here, and it does suck that he kind of lied to Bonnie, but I understand why he did it. Perfect. I understand why he wanted to reassure her, and that's perfectly fine. It's going to be very interesting to see how they handle Vegapunk's death, though, right? Because Vegapunk is on the ship. So, will they give him a Viking funeral? I think Oda will plan. I think that's what Oda will plan, because I know for sure Oda probably wants to do like a Viking funeral, right? We kind of got that with the Going Merry's death, right? With the Viking funeral, but it's possible that like we will see that. We will see a Viking funeral for Vegapunk, and that will be what Oda will plan to do in regards to that. I know that he like probably doesn't plan on killing anyone in Elbaf. So that's probably why he would do like a Viking funeral for him, especially with the giants themselves, right? But it's very interesting. It's very interesting that Vegapunk had this plot to, you know, die, and Sanji kind of like, I don't know if Sanji wanted, you know, him to die, you know, in his hands, but I think that whatever Vegapunk said to him, or like what he says in here, but come to why setting important into motion, and that's where Sanji didn't protect him as much. Maybe Kizaru was kind of in on it as well, who knows, but I think it was very admirable of Sanji to do that, because it did create the message, and like the entire world knows a lot more information than they previously know. Like, it's not like the world government can go around killing everybody that who heard Vegapunk's message. It's like that's an insane thing to do, right? You just can't. So it's a really cool thing for Sanji. It's a really cool moment for Sanji to see that Oda didn't just let Sanji just, you know, be a fool or anything like that, but he went along with Vegapunk's plan. And you know what? Props to Sanji for that. And then we had the final page, the last big, huge panel of like everyone celebrating. And this is great. This is funny because Luffy is literally like old and weak and like just tired and, you know, just like wanting to, like, he wants to party, but like he can't party because he's just completely like weakened. He's so weak right now. And freaking, I think it's Dory O'Brien, I forget the names, right? But he's just like, no, wait, please don't do this. Let me recover first before we start partying. I want to join the party, you know. My headcanon is that, you know, he still wanted to rest on Nami's lap, but like that's definitely not what's happening here. He just wants to party, and he's not in a state where he can properly party. It's a great final panel as they're heading off, as they're going to be partying as they're heading off to Elbaf. So it's great. It's fantastic. I do think that was very fun. This was a fun chapter. I would give this chapter a 9 out of 10. I thought a lot of the information we saw was fantastic, and now we're moving on to the next arc, more than likely Elbaf. But what if they decide to go with like a smaller arc, kind of like, I know Egghead is kind of similar to like Zoe, but not necessarily. I think Egghead's a little bit longer than Zoe, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe like a shorter arc. We'll probably see more of like events that's been happening around the world, like maybe with Garb, maybe with Blackbeard, Law, and all that cast, right? We'll probably see that more in the next few chapters. We'll probably see more of that. But it's possible that they might stop by another island. I believe Sphinx Island's nearby, or the island where like Marco is currently living to protect that village. They could make those stops. Sphinx Island is where Ace's and Whitebeard's grave are, I believe. So it's possible they could go there. I think that would be a pretty cool moment for Luffy to see Ace's grave before they head off to Elbaf. But yeah, I think that it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Elbaf. I'm excited for Elbaf. I can't wait to see what happens in Elbaf, what plans Oda has for Elbaf, because it's definitely one of his, you know, most anticipated arcs, more than likely, because we've been hearing about Elbaf for so goddamn long, right? So it's gonna be exciting, it's gonna be fun, and I can't wait to see it. So thank you so much for watching my essentially review, reaction, and thoughts about One Piece chapter 1123. I hope you enjoyed it, and please subscribe to my channel if you want to hear more of my thoughts. Sometimes I do the videos like this, sometimes I do streams when I talk about like the One Piece chapter. So yeah, let me know what you thought about what I talked about, and thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.